There is absolutely a connection between being a performing musician and being able to convey those kind of skills to young students. These are people who have talent but have not yet learned how to make their fingers do what they need to do. They don't know how to listen yet. Most of our students have never seen a score. They've never seen a full orchestral score. And the first time you show that to them, I mean, it's like someone's first Christmas that they remember. It's like, oh my gosh, that happens.
With all the kinds of pressures of teaching in a school, there evolves a kind of rut in teaching, where one class comes in, you teach the concept, next class comes in, you do it again, you do it again. And what helps me get out of that is playing with groups like the Princeton Symphony. It's so refreshing, especially the last several years when we had different perspectives because they were looking for a conductor. And it's so fascinating how each one acquires their goals in musical performance.
I wouldn't be teaching if I weren't performing, and I wouldn't be performing if I weren't teaching. These two make me who I am as a person. I went to school all the way to a doctoral level as a performer, but as soon as I fell in love with teaching about 10 years ago, I just felt it both keep me happy.
String, which is here, and this is the lowest string of the violin.
I really live in two musical worlds. One is the musical world that I have during the day with Twinkle Twinkle, getting a good bow hold, sitting up straight in orchestra, getting along with your stand partner. And the other world is the world of Mahler and Beethoven and Brahms. And you would think that they wouldn't have much to do with each other. And yet the interesting thing is that they absolutely do.
All I have learned in school and from performing feeds into what I do every day with my students, and what I learn from my students feeds into my inspiration performing. So these two just, can't live without one or another.
In the Princeton Symphony, everyone's a professional, and therefore there doesn't need to be this kind of elevation of voice to get a good performance or a good rehearsal, which sometimes I've had to do here just to get their attention. But what I've learned is that you work at trying to do things in a positive way, and always that positive way. this is what I've learned through teaching and also through performing, that you have to come properly prepared and disciplined in your music so that you can make music together. And so that's what I've learned through Princeton Symphony.
Excellent, beautiful, good bow hold.
One of the things that I love to do with my kids, particularly when I have a rehearsal week with say, the Princeton Symphony, I love to bring the music in to them, the music that I'm working on, and show them what I have to learn that week. And sometimes we'll be playing something with the Princeton Symphony that I have never played before, and I have to actually really learn those notes. And I like to show the kids that I have to do the exact same thing they do. They may be overwhelmed by an easy orchestral piece that they're trying to learn, maybe one measure where there's all these 16th notes, and they look at me and go, I will never be able to play that. And so I bring in my pieces and I say, well, look what I have to learn. And don't you think I get frustrated in the same way that you do? And the only way I get through it is the same way that you're going to be able to get through it, one note at a time. And their eyes get huge. When I share things about my professional life, they seem to stop what they're doing and listen in a way that they don't listen when I'm just teaching to them. And being a performer as well as a teacher, I'm close to performing. I'm right there. I'm doing it right now. And they know that, and they love that. And they come to my concerts. It's just a great sharing that we can do because we're all in the same boat.
The fact that as a professional player, you having played operas by Benjamin Britten and symphonies by Dmitri Shostakovich, having played the great masterworks, the Brahms Requiem, the St. Matthew Passion, you can bring what you've learned from those pieces to the teaching of material that's at this level. You're teaching 6th graders music that's at their level. 7th graders, they learn music at their own level. 8th grade has their own level, their own set of issues, their own curriculum that they're working on. But all the years of experience playing all the great masterworks, you can bring so much more life to the music. Playing music of that level, you've probably also worked with great conductors. You've sat in sections with fabulous musicians. And so you can bring all of that to school too. Again, not that a 6th grader necessarily needs to know what you learned from the conductor of the Chicago Symphony when you were in high school and playing in a youth orchestra. But you can filter down those ideas. You can break them down to a 6th grade level and help that student achieve much more than he would have otherwise.
High school Norse orchestra, the Philharmonic, went to England. And as one of those pieces, I chose the Elgar Nimrod from his Enigma variations. Well, we performed that in England. Then we came back and I performed that same piece, only the entire Enigma variations, but we performed Nimrod and with the Princeton Symphony. And one of the things that I was struggling with the high school orchestra was that I couldn't teach them to play slow enough to get the phrases to be lyrical and not lose the energy at the end of the phrases. And so I was strapped to a little faster tempo until I learned this idea from Milanov saying, you know, you have to continue to make music all the way through the phrase, all the way to the end of your bow. You know, you can't give up. And it wasn't that we weren't making music, it just reminded us to help us focus on the end of the phrases, at the end of each note, you know, and how they are connected, you know, that sort of thing. And I brought that back here, and it made the world of difference. And we were able to slow it down and bring it to these long, delicious phrases. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience for everybody.
I learned so much from being a performer, let's say playing in the Princeton Symphony Orchestra, and now we got a fabulous conductor, Razan Milanov. And just the other day in the rehearsal, something he said to the first violin section and therefore the whole string section, just a light bulb went on in my head, and I definitely will share that insight, what I learned from him, with my students. He said the other day that we were having trouble playing this very challenging passage perfectly together, and he just paused and said in such a nice way to the musicians that, you know, it's hardest to sit in the back of the section. It's also very, very difficult to sit in the front of the section, and everyone in between as well. So if we can, the front can listen to the back, and the back section and listen to the front, so everyone in between, then we'll all work together as a team and perfectly together.
So what he did was he changed the perspective of how musicians listen amongst themselves. And it worked. They played beautifully.
And I thought, what a great idea if you just approach it. No, it's no one's fault that we're not quite playing together right now, but everyone just do something slightly different, and then it all comes together beautifully.
A prescription for a correction did not deal with barking at the musicians or making them feel inadequate. It was a positive working together, you know, and a teamwork.
That's the essence of ensemble playing. That's it really, tells you how much I learned being a member of a great orchestra, performing constantly, and how it's going to help my students be better musicians.
So these are kinds of things that I learned from Princeton Symphony. These are really advanced kinds of things that also spiral to all levels in terms of high school, middle school, elementary. It's just very important to keep that as a foundation to making music and to teaching music.
We try out a couple hundred kids at the beginning of the year.
I'm going to give you a viola so you can hear the difference. This is lower, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We place the instruments in the kids' hands. They've never played before. Many of them have never held an instrument before. We place them in their hands, and they get to just feel what it's like to have a violin in their hands. They don't have to play it correctly. They just get to feel what it feels like, to hear what it sounds like, and feel what that sound is like, what the vibration is like. And some kids are indifferent. It's fun for them.
Hear that high sound? That's the high sound of the violin, highest string.
But they don't exhibit any kind of special passion toward it. But every once in a while, you'll get a kid who will get a violin in their hands or a cello in their hands, and you look in their eyes and you could see the light that just goes on. And sometimes they'll giggle, or sometimes they'll just beam, and you'll know that this is it for them.
So what do you think?
Viola.
Viola!
To be present at that moment is so special and makes me remember why I'm a musician. So that when I go to a rehearsal that night, I carry that with me. And then it goes back, and then I come the next morning and I may have to conduct my 5th grade orchestra. And it might have been an incredible rehearsal the night before, and I'm just supercharged, and the kids can feel it.
If you don't perform, you go home from school, and school has been your musical outlet. But if you are a performer, you go home from school where maybe you've taught the 7th graders how to play a Sousa march, and that's in your head, and you think, oh, how can I make that better? Well, then you go out that night. That Sousa march has not been your daily dose of music for the day. You go out that evening and you go sit in the Princeton Symphony, or if you're subbing in the New Jersey Symphony or whatever, you get to sit and hear a real orchestra sound around you. And so your own inner ear just keeps growing and expanding, and you never stop growing as a player, therefore you never stop growing as a teacher. And I think the children and teachers both benefit from that.
It's easy as a performing musician. You play the same Beethoven symphonies every year in your orchestra, and it's easy to become stale. Teaching young children, I get to see music through their young eyes, through their new, excited eyes, and it's very inspiring. It's helped me tremendously in my performing. Sitting next to fantastic musicians who are my colleagues, I learn from them, I learn from my conductor, and I'm able to give back to my students, even at their young age, an enthusiasm that I might not have if I wasn't performing.
There's a lot of parallel things that occur between my job here in the school and my job there in the orchestra. And I'm very proud to be in both situations. It's just a great way to do music.